expired. I call the Honourable Dr. Nick Smith.
Mr. Speaker, I want to commend Justice Minister Simon Power on the very considered way in which he has brought together this sensible package of alcohol reform. Mr. Speaker, history is littered with ideological lurches on alcohol law here and abroad. We've had prohibition, we've had the 6 o'clock swill, we've had the ultra-liberalisation that was brought in with the Sale of Liquor Act in 1989. And the part I found most ironic about Leanne Dalzell's contribution is that I remember sharing a platform with her way back in 1990 in which she championed the 1989 Sale of Liquor Act that she's just spent the last 10 minutes rubbishing, suggesting, and you know who the key ministers? Annette King, Phil Goff, were key members from Labor that put in place that Sale of Liquor Act back in 1989, and that's the sort of ideological lurches that we get from the left rather than a common sense sort of reform. You see, this reform package is balanced, it's pragmatic, it's thorough. It picks up, in contrast to what Leanne Dell's tried to say, 126 of the 153 recommendations in the Law Commission report. It will make a difference to reducing the harm from alcohol in our community without us becoming a bunch of wowsers and without us imposing penalties on the vast bulk of New Zealanders who have a beer or a wine without causing harm. My interest in this issue is both as a constituency MP in Nelson as well as the Minister of ACC. Nelson has had a sad surge in violence, most connected to the abuse of alcohol, over the past 6 months. Nelson is no worse than many other communities, but I can tell you the population had enough and are expecting us to act. They want a government not to just tackle crime, but to also tackle the causes of crime. As ACC Minister, I've become far more aware of the real fiscal cost to our country of alcohol abuse. Drink driving is just the tip of the iceberg. Nearly a quarter of all accidents, falls, drownings, assaults, costing $650 million a year to ACC, have alcohol as a contributing factor. The parts I like about this bill are firstly stricter licensing. The 1989 laissez-faire approach has not worked. We have too many booze outlets, particularly in some of our most vulnerable communities. I also back the tough approach taken to RTDs, or ready-to-drinks. The academic may argue that the form of alcohol is sold doesn't matter. The reality is that high alcohol RTDs are behind some of the worst abuse. The advantage of lower alcohol drinks is simply that the bladder starts to fail before the brain does. I also back the measures in this bill around the drinking age. I voted for the age of 18 in 1998, but I'm happy to put my hand up and say I got it wrong. The part I believe Parliament totally underestimated was the degree to which the age of 18 has enabled 17, 16, 15 and actually 14 and 13-year-olds to get access to alcohol. The strength of this bill is in making it an offence to supply under 18-year-olds, in putting some onus on host responsibility, and in only allowing on-licence sales for 18 and 19-year-olds. I also want to back the provision in this bill that gives our council far greater discretion over local alcohol laws. There are some areas of which the sensible approach is a national regulation. I take things like cell phone towers in my own environment portfolio, vehicle standards, building standards. But the reality is that alcohol is an inherently local issue. What's best of the viaduct in Auckland, or whether it's in Queenstown, or whether in the community of a suburban street in Nelson is quite different, and it's quite appropriate that we empower communities to be able to make their own choices between tourism, between hospitality and harm reduction. And I recognise that different rules are quite appropriate for different neighbourhoods. The extension of alcohol liquor bans as part of what councils can do through their bylaws is exactly the sort of practical measure in this bill that we need to put in place if we are to reduce harm. There are hundreds of changes in this bill. As the Minister has said, it is not the last word. The community needs the opportunity to have their say on these proposals. This bill is a very good starting point for that debate. This government is committed to listening carefully during the Select Committee process. There is no question about direction. We need to tighten our alcohol laws. We need to work hard to get the detail right so we do better to manage the harm caused by alcohol and build a more responsible culture in the way we use alcohol in New Zealand. Mr. Speaker, I commend the work of the Minister and the bill to this House.